Mr. Polyev, I can't hear you. I could see you, but I can't
you can
hear
see
you.
him?
I could see him, yeah. Can't hear him. Clerk, can you see Mr. Polyev?
Oh, yeah, no, I can see him here. Yeah, he's there.
But we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, I've got a problem with my microphone.
Mr. Hammam.
Thank you very much for being here. Very interested in your story. First of all, I'd like you to explain how it is that you were able to anticipate inflation in Canada when all the so-called experts, including our finance minister, said we'd have deflation. Why is it that you, as a small businessman and an immigrant from a country which had abused its own money, were so much more prescient in foretelling the future than were the people who make all the big bucks to predict these things?
Well, we were on the ground when the pandemic started, Pierre, and the thing that we saw right when the pandemic started was there was more money going around than before the pandemic started, and we quickly realized that this is something that is going to lead to inflation, because just what if you look, think about it from first principles. If you have more money chasing the same amount of goods, is going to lead to higher prices. So we decided that we have to act and we have to move to protect our own money from getting debased. And that's when we started, researching and digging around, and we found a solution, a better technology for money called Bitcoin, and we were able to act on it. And the result was, a year and a half later, is it did protect our wealth, and it grew our purchasing power.
To be clear, what you did is you used the liquid part of your balance sheet to hold Bitcoin instead of to hold Canadian dollars. Is that the sum total of it?
Yeah, agreed. And like I said, we saw what was coming, which we knew there was going to be an inflationary environment moving forward. So we took our balance sheet as a company and we bought Bitcoin with it. And our reasoning was because there was more money flowing around. That's as simple as that.
Right.
And here we are, 2 years later, and
what was the price you paid what did you pay in price for the Bitcoin?
Around then, it was like around $10,000 to $12,000.
Okay.
Canadians, as they wish to move across the country, whether it's for business or personal reasons, whether or not it's safe for them to go from region to region or area to area. And we want to make sure that as we go into this deep dive with officials and with the minister, that we are also recognizing the real-time safety concerns of Canadians, and that we want to do our work efficiently, both here in committee, and make sure that the will of the committee is heard, but that also that we're working efficiently here and with the House. Other colleagues, like my colleague, Mr. Green, have other concerns that we need to put on the committee table, and we need to get to the crux of this, of what will satisfy both the committee and the concerns that Mr. Vermeer has raised, so that we can move forward. Thank you, Mr.
And what is the price today?
Today is at like $37,000 US dollars.
So in your case, because of the timing on which you bought it, you've had actually about 60% deflation in terms of what the purchasing power is of the cash that the money that you held on your liquid balance sheet. In other words, the price of goods in Bitcoin went down by about 66% from the time you bought it until the present. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct. And that goes back to the opening statement that I made. It's a fixed money supply, and it's not controlled by anyone. So you go in knowing the rules, and the rules don't change on you, and the money supply doesn't change on you. So
how much time do I have, Chairman?
Got about 2 minutes.
Okay. And are you taking Bitcoin as a source of payment from your customers when they come in and buy shawarma or falafel? Can they do it in Bitcoin?
Well, I would love to do that, but the tax laws on Bitcoin is being treated as a capital gains tax event if I sell it or receive it or use it to pay my vendors. So that's why I think it would help nourish innovation if we make Bitcoin legal tender here in Canada.
All right, and you're still proposing that your customers should have to pay HST and that you would pay business tax on the Bitcoin you receive? You're just suggesting that there should not be capital gains tax on amounts used to make individual retail purchases. Did I capture your view right?
100%. The way Bitcoin is treated right now is if I send you, Pierre, $1,000 in Bitcoin, that would be a taxable event for me, and I'd have to pay the cap gains on that $1,000 that I sent to you. So if you want to use it practically in commerce like that, it wouldn't make any sense. So what we did is we just buy it with our profits. We operate in Canadian dollars, 100%, and then whatever is left over, that's what we use to sweep over into Bitcoin.
And would you say that your family's history of witnessing a government ruin its money gave you an advantage because you were able to say, well, I've seen this story before when the central bank started turning on its money printer?
Exactly. And if you do the same, if you apply the same money policies, we're not immune to an inflationary environment.
Right.
We're just like any country that faces inflation right now, whether it's Egypt, Lebanon, Turkey. If we do the same things, we're going to end up with the same results.
Broussard next, and then followed by Ms. Khalid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the amendment, I would agree with Mr. Vilmure's assessment on some of the language that needs to be couched, and I'm looking at the amendment right now, and perhaps Mr. Fergus would consider importing Mr. Vilmure's word of recommendation. The ultimate goal of what Mr. Vilmure is proposing is until and unless this committee is satisfied that the privacy data that was collected unknowingly of 33 million Canadians is protected and the proper security protocols were put in place and the proper security measures were put in place. That's really what the crux of what we're trying to accomplish here in this study. This, as I mentioned in previous meetings, this wasn't known until this RFP was actually instituted or called for that would have expanded this program. Since then, since this RFP was put out, security experts, surveillance experts, and privacy experts have universally been exposing a cause for concern. So I won't be satisfied until I'm absolutely 100% certain that this information was deaggregated, that it was depersonalized. And I'm sorry for being a skeptic, Mr. Chair, but I'm not going to take the government's word for it. I'm not going to take the Minister of Health's word for it. And this is the reason why we proposed this study, so that we can call in the companies that were collecting this data. We can call in the security and surveillance experts. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, I've done a deep dive into this, and there are legitimate reasons to be concerned from a security standpoint. So proposing what Mr. Vilmure proposes, I think, is a prudent move on the part of the committee in order to do that. Now, I know that there's been some mention of what Mr. Van Couverden had sent out, and I find it awfully curious that 45 minutes before this committee meeting started, that we get a letter from the parliamentary secretary saying, everything's okay, we're using this data. And I agree with Mr. Vilmure, and I think my colleagues on this side agree as well, that we want the best results from a public health standpoint. But we also need to be bloody well assured that the privacy rights of Canadians are being protected. And until and unless we get to that point where we're satisfied, I think it's a concern, at least by the reaction that I've received over the last couple of weeks, a concern of many Canadians that their mobility data was being collected without them knowing. Now, I will also note in this blue dot reference, and listen, I've had to borrow Mr. Courick's iPad here because I really needed to blow up a little bit more so I can see what these data sources are. And anybody that reads the appendix to this, it should actually not give them any satisfaction that their privacy and data was protected. It should actually give reasons for concern. So, I want to be able to discuss with these privacy and security experts what the risk is to the privacy data of Canadians, and I think it's prudent upon us to send a message to the government that this RFP needs to be delayed. So Mr. Fergus is reaching the spirit of what Mr. Villemure is proposing, but we cannot have this data collected until we're absolutely sure, Mr. Chair, that privacy data is being protected in a way that we can be assured and that Canadians, most importantly, can be assured that it's happening in the proper way with the proper security protocols and the proper security measures. So just on the amendment, I think we're getting close to where we need to be on this, but we better be sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. And now Ms. Khalid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to pick up on something that Mr. Broussard said, I didn't see an appendix to this document at all, so I'm not really sure what he's referring to. Maybe I've missed a page here and there, but I having reviewed this document, I see how that aggregated data